Welcome to Forged in the Fires podcast with Fireman Rob. Being a fireman, father, veteran, husband, world record holder, and Ironman, he brings stories of experience to impact your life while challenging you to live it. What do you want from your life? Why do you want it? Are you willing to go through the challenges to get there? If you have the courage to take that first step, let this podcast be the catalyst to start your fire while you bring the resilience to make it continue to burn. Our lives are made up of moments called right nows. So let's get started. Forged in the Fires podcast with your host, Fireman Rob, begins now.
All right, welcome back to Forged in the Fires podcast. I'm your host, Fireman Rob. Today's guest, I wish maybe I can convince him to sing a little on the show, but he was in the Navy. He was a corpsman in the Navy. He worked with a U.S. Marine Corps sniper team, and now he's continuing on his patriotic duty, and he's doing such amazing things. I mean, he's been on shared stages with Brantley Gilbert, Trace Adkins, Toby Keith. You know what? Let's just get right to the rock and roll patriot. Dave Bray, thanks so much for joining me today.
Hey, thanks, Rob. Appreciate you having me on, brother. And I heard your son wants to be a corpsman as well.
Yes, I mean it was so cool to see that in your bio, and I was like, oh, you know, certain things happen for a reason, right?
Yeah. Well, I was before we got on here. I don't know if I told you, but it's not an easy job, especially if you're going to be with the Marine Corps.
No, I can only imagine. I actually want to go back to that. Let's go back to that when you first signed the papers, said, I'm going to serve my country. Where were you at that point? What was the meaning behind you going into the military?
Well, I think a lot of us have the same meaning or the same thing at heart. There's two sides of that sword. I think many people want to obviously serve their country and stand up for freedom and the good and the right things that are in this world and fight for the team and the good guys. But then there's others of us who are trying to escape things. And
right. For
me, I was kind of double-edged to that sword. Obviously, my dad was a Navy guy. My brother, he had joined the Navy, enlisted right out of high school. Wow. And I wanted to follow in those footsteps because there was a family tradition of prior service. I have people that have fought in World War I, World War II, Korea. Really? So there is a lot of prior service in my family. And not that it was expected, but, I also wanted to escape small town America. I had a lot of trauma as a young man, and I was trying to find a new direction, a new place, a new canvas of life. And I wanted to paint a new picture for myself. And I think that was probably one of my driving forces as well, was to get out of where I was.
Right. And when you were in active duty, what was, how did it change you as a person? Because you always hear stories of different things from different people, but how did it change you as a person? And you went through corpsman. I mean, that's not an easy path, like you're saying.
Yeah. It all starts with that ASFAB, right? To see what jobs are available. See what jobs are. They're like, we got a crap burner. You can go burn tar and poo into tar if you want with all the rest of the trash.
You didn't pick that? What were you thinking?
On that, but I did really well in school, and I didn't really try my last couple of years again. I had some back trauma and some things that I just wanted to escape from. So. Yeah. But I wanted to do the military, and I wanted to give that another shot. I felt like it was a good reset button for me. And they offered me the nuke field, and then like down from there was the corpsman field. And I had a buddy whose dad was an FMF Devil Doc. And,
okay.
I also was thinking at that point in time of my life that I wanted to do SEAL teams and that kind of thing. And, being pretty much I believe every SEAL has a lot of corpsman skills. And you got to be able to take care of yourself out in the battlefield. So anyway, long story short is, I wanted to be with the Marines. I wanted to obviously join the Navy. I was hoping that I could be a SEAL, and that was the goal at the time. But yeah, it's not an easy job no matter what. But we got back to the question was, how to active duty, sort of service change you. And that's like,
yeah.
If you go back to basic training, it's pretty simple. You know what I mean? They break you down to zero, and then you are sort of a product of your environment from that point on. And the environment and the people and the humans you surround yourself with are who you grow into militarily.
Right.
And, I had some great people that I was around. I had some bad influences as well. And I fell back into some old habits. So yeah, it was interesting.
Now, I love the quote that you have here on your site, DaveBrayUSA.com, stay the course, finish the fight, never surrender. Where did that come from?
Man, I thought I heard it somewhere before, and I looked it up, and I couldn't see really anybody who
I haven't heard it before.
I've heard stay the course, I've heard finish the fight, and I've heard never surrender, but I've never heard them stacked.
Yeah.
And so when I started my branding and I ended up buying a print shop so I could print my own t-shirts because I got tired of getting raked over the coals for lousy t-shirts. And I'm like, you know what, I can do this. I spent about 50-50 time on the road and time at home. And my time at home is with my kids. And I got two, preteen boys who are helping me out with the shop, and they help me do the merchandise. And
awesome.
They help me print, and they help me do inventory, and they stack and fold and fulfillment and everything. So they're huge helpers, and they're learning a part of the business that most people just kind of go to the internet and put a Teespring website up. And I'm like, no, we're Brays. We're stubborn. We're not doing it that way. Nobody getting in our pocket. We do it ourselves. Right. So
I love that.
So it created sort of another occupation for me because I had to learn really quick how to do it. And I was with another project called Madison Rising that I was doing their merch too. And I was learning at that point in time. And then the guy who taught me had passed away. He was a good friend of mine. And I basically bought, some of his equipment and brought it back to my building and just started from scratch and figuring out how to make it all work and how to do it on a cheap dime. And I rewired some electric in my house and some other stuff. And just, like I said, created the in-home shop.
You did the Bray full rendering of this new life, right?
Yeah. Well, I learned really quickly that like the whole idle hands Devil's Playground thing's I'm a sucker for that one. So it's like as soon as I get bored or whatever, I start either buying guitars and guns or I just get in trouble. So better to keep me busy.
That's a better idea, right? Now, how did you go from corpsman? And I'm sure those times in between, but what was the music background that you had? How did that really kind of flourish after that?
Well, music was first, man. Music
was it? Okay.
First. Yeah. So I did a year of delayed entry. I was a go-getter, hard charger. I was ready to go and get the heck out of where I was. But I once I signed up, I actually found a group of musicians in the area that were putting together a couple decent cover tunes and playing some parties and some other stuff. And I was like, man, you guys got to let me come sing for you guys. You guys suck. And just kidding. But the singer sucked. Anyway,
like being honest, right?
No, I was like, dude, but it was, I loved music and I always thought that I could do it. And I sung in my church choir as a kid. And then I got into like some heavier metal and some other stuff. And I was like, man, just give me the mic. Give me a shot. And I did a real good, like Metallica meets Eddie Vedder meets Chris Cornell meets Nirvana kind of vibe to my song.
That is an impressive group of individuals.
Yeah. And then I wrapped it up. I wrap it all nice in like this, Chris Christopherson vibe meets John Denver kind of vibe. So I'm just all over the place. And I loved
Nirvana and John Denver. Is that
all of it? All of it, man. All of it. If a song touches my heart, I want to try to emulate that. So
that's awesome.
it was one of those things where I felt like I could sing really, really well. And then I had this anger button, which I just called like the red switch. And once that switch flipped, like our stage shows were these 7-minute songs where we would build. And just when you thought that the song was done building, the drumstick would break on the snare, and I would literally scream until I was bleeding out of my lungs. And it was an incredible act. And it got a lot of attention very, very quickly, to the point where we moved to California after I got out of the military to try to pursue it, but money and jobs got in the way. So.
Oh, that's crazy. Now, talk to me more about the Star Spangled Banner rendition that you did, because that's all over the place now.
Right, right.
Where did that stem from? What was the premise behind, the way that the rock rendition that you did?
Yeah. So I used to, when I was with the label, and again, when I was with Madison Rising, we would spend a couple days in the studio every week up in New York City. And I used to take the train down from central Pennsylvania, which is right below Harrisburg. I used to take that train all the way across from Harrisburg, which is right in the middle of PA, all the way across to Philadelphia through Amish country. And as you're going through Amish country, you're looking out the window and you're seeing, these kids that are out there with five mules on a team tilling the ground, and you see these kids that are catching the nails from the guys ripping the barns down. And you see these kids that are out there, putting up laundry, and these young girls that are helping, and these families just doing this stuff. You see all that as you're taking a train through Amish country. It's beautiful.
Right.
And, then you come into like where, industrial coal area, a lot of the housing for the coal mining operations that were going on in the area, and the industry that was building up around Philly. You go through all that, then finally you get down into Philadelphia, and then you take the turn up through Jersey, you go through Trenton. Then you get outside of New York City, see the New York City skyline, and you see all this stuff, right? So I used to do this, 2-3 times a week, take a train up, and it's like a 3-hour drive or train ride. And, man, it was such a slice of cross culture of the American history, all in that area. You have these sort of the Puritans that are out there doing it, with horses on the field.
Yeah.
And then you have the industrial portion of America. And then you have even the ghettos. You see the spray paint, the trash, and all the stuff outside of, Philly. And then you see the big sky rises and all the money. And then you kind of do it all over again through Jersey. So as I'm sitting on this train, I'm hearing the clickety clack of the tracks, as old Thomas
Thomas the Train.
I'm listening to this, and it goes, and as it's sitting there going, I'm tapping my foot to that, and I'm looking out this window, and I started humming the national anthem, the Star Spangled Banner, and I got to the
no way,
and I got to the Rockets Red Glare part, and I was like, it would be so cool if it was just like, and the Rockets Red Glare, and I was just like, well, I better write that down. So I started penning it on this train ride back and forth, and I kept getting to the bridge and trying to figure out what I was going to do for the bridge. And I already knew that I wanted the Jimi Hendrix guitar solo in there. Yeah. And so I took this idea up to the studio, and we would get paid to go in the studio and work for 3 hours on the songs that we were supposed to work. And that was it. You weren't supposed to go. This was all pre-tour work. So you weren't supposed to go in there and try to write. You weren't supposed to go in there and try to create. It was just go crank out the set for the tour, and that's it. You got 3 hours to work on your hour-and-a-half set, run it twice, come back to the office, talk with the label reps, and then everybody can go about their business, make sure everybody's good to go and just ready. So yeah. So I get into the studio, and I'm there early, and I get into the studio room down on 30th, which is right by Penn Station, New York. I come up out of the Penn Station. There's a studio right there, and we're in one of the smaller rooms, and they already have like a keyboard and all the amps and everything set up. And I'm sitting there on the keyboard doing the boom, like basically playing the bass line, and I'm singing it. I'm getting it ready for the guys. My drummer comes in, and I was like, man, just give me some like light cymbal work in the beginning. I was like, see if you catch a vibe off this. And I started singing it for him, and then a bass player came in, and he starts actually playing the bass part. And I'm like, that's perfect. Yeah. So then the guitar player shows up, and I was like, man, and we're in the middle of this thing now, right? So we're everybody's on amps. It's just me, guitar and bass, and guitar player shows up. I'm like, when I point to you, plug your guitar, get yourself ready. When I point to you, give me that Jimi Hendrix guitar solo for the national anthem. And he's like, got it. So we get to that point, and I'm like, point to him. He's like, it's just cranking. And then last guitar player, the rhythm guitar player shows up. He's like, "This is stupid. I don't want to do this." I'm like, "Shut up! You're doing it." So we get it kind of worked out. We get a demo, and we spent the whole basically like 3 hours cutting this thing. And I came up with the bridge, the whole "We Are the Brave" chant. And
dude,
we got this thing down to like 4 minutes and 20 some seconds or whatever. And I said, I get my phone out and I do this crummy recording, and we finish up. Studio time's wrapped. We go up to the offices, and we meet with all the the studio people that are up there, investors or whatever. How was it today? Blah 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 blah. And I was like, we got the best song. It's going to be amazing. And I throw down my phone. I'm all proud, you know what I mean? And like halfway through it, like I take a torturous scream. You wasted our studio time on going. Oh,
you gotta be kidding me!
Bull crap, right? I was like, wait a second, what are you talking about, right? So,
yeah,
don't. And the quote that came out of the head of the record label's mouth was, "We don't want to be known as the band that f's up the national anthem." Right? So,
you gotta be kidding me!
Yeah. So anyway, we go out. We're doing our tour dates. We're playing, and we end up with a date down in Nashville. And we're all pumped up. It's our first Nashville gig on Broadway, right? So we're playing at a place called the Underground. And I said, guys, we're playing it tonight. And they're like, dude, no, because there's executives here because we're meeting up with label people. And I'm like, nope, we're doing it, man. And they're like, dude, I was like, last song, we're cutting it. I was like, just go into it. I said, I'll take all the heat. It can be all me. They're going to know it was me anyway. So I'll take all the heat. So we start going into this song, and we had gotten a decent response from a lot of the originals and a couple of the covers we did, but it wasn't like we didn't have the crowd. And there's a difference between playing before a crowd and having the crowd, right? As a performer, right. When you have the crowd.
Oh yeah.
And so this place is, the standard, shotgun bar down one side and, empties out into the street. On Broadway in Nashville, if you've ever been down there. And, and we start playing the song, and all of a sudden you start seeing people like turn towards the stage and putting their hands on the heart and they're raising beers up in the sky, and they realize what it is, right? Because it starts out kind of somber, and then it kicks into that Rocket's Red Glare. Well, people started freaking out, and we didn't know if it was a good freak out or a bad freak out.
Didn't matter at the time.
Yeah, it was like beer kind of started flying. People are like, yes, you know what I mean? So we built this thing up, and then people started pouring in off of the street as we're playing because they heard the guitar solo for the Star Spangled Banner. They start coming in for the solo. Then we go into the bridge, and it's rocking now. People are freaking out. Dude, we finish up how the song finish up, and the home of the brave, and the place is losing its mind. And that was the first time it was ever played live. And after that, I see the record label's executive coming back, and he's like, we got to get this thing in the studio. We got to get this thing recorded. We got to work this thing. I was like, yes, thank you very much. He's like, now I get it. I see it. I understand it. I get it. I was like, yeah. Okay. So it was at that point that our tables turned as a band, and we got kind of nationally recognized for a song and started blowing up, and we started touring heavy and working hard and doing what every band needs to do. And, there was, it was interesting because after we finally got some success after this gamble that I took, with this song going against everybody's advice, once we finally got success, it was like, oh, and by the way, here's a new contract, and we're going to basically screw you in every way we possibly can, or you're fired if you don't sign it. And I'm like, that's great.
Shocking, right?
So I basically walked away and couldn't sign the contract, and they terminated my old contract. So I was removed from the Madison Rising Band situation.
But it was one of those, I mean, at that point, you took the risk. But yeah, man, the risk was worth the reward that you got later, right?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, when it comes to those things, and this is, I think this is what this podcast really wants to get to here, is the fact that you are going to come to points in your life where you're going to make an A or B you're going to make an A or B choice, and those major choices that you make in life are either going to change your life for the better or change your life for the good.
Yeah.
And 9 times out of 10, I can almost guarantee 9 times out of 10, it's going to be the harder decision. It's going to be the one that hurts the most when the Band-Aid of that decision comes off the skin. And nobody voluntarily likes to make those decisions, but they have to be made in order for you to grow as a person, in order for your spirit to grow, for your mind to grow, for your body to grow, for your soul to grow to what it needs to. So those decisions that you make, the hard, super hard, difficult decisions that you make and deal with the consequences of, are the ones that you want to look for in life, man. We all have, all of us are walking around every single day with 10 of them that we can make on any given day. But who wants to actually turn around and look at any one of those 10 decisions and say, you know what, my job is killing me, I need to walk away. You know what, alcohol is killing me, I need to walk away. You know what, drugs are killing me, I need to walk away. You know, this relationship is killing me, I need to walk away. All these are the types of decisions that I'm talking about. They're the ones that, you know, you're either dragging those anchors down the street, or you need to make that decision and say, you know what, I'm going to suffer it. I don't have a place to live, but I'm leaving this house. I don't.
You just got to hit that bridge. You just got to hit that bridge.
I don't have a job lined up, but I'm leaving this one today. It's over for me. You know, but when you make those decisions, that immediate moment you make that decision, you know there's no going back, and that you just torched that ship and that bridge is burning behind you in slow motion. You're walking away. All of a sudden you're empowered, man. And that's what it's all about.
At what point when you made, so obviously like when you made the decision in the moment to play that, do you remember what you were thinking in the back of your mind? Did you have more thought process around, hey, we're going to get every single person off of that street back in here? Or was it like, oh crap, this is the rest of my life right here?
Well, that moment was I was less concerned about that moment than I was the moment after. I mean, because I could have signed a contract and kept going. I had a wife and kids. Right. I could have signed a contract and kept going, or fallen for that contract and lost everything, you know,
identity
in this, everything, right? Yeah. Give up your social medias. You know, we're not going to pay you the money we owe you. You have no rights to any of your music that you wrote. You have no rights to the Star Spangled Banner that you created. You have no rights to anything. Right. Because the original contract said something completely different. So that was the moment that was like, truthfully, where Stay the Course, Finish the Fight, Never Surrender came from. Was okay. This is a war situation. I've been placed into a battlefield that I never knew existed. This is a war situation for me. This is a man and a record label who I've completely committed my life to for 5 years, my family's life to for 5 years. My wife worked for the label. They knew that they were the only source of income we had. Yep. And I was sitting there with mortgages and car payments and insurances and stacks of bills needing to be paid. And I'm sitting there going, you know what? I'm not doing it. I'm not signing all that away, because they put me in that check. I allowed them to put me in that check. And that was my fault. You know what I mean? I allowed them to put me in check. So therefore I got two moves. I can fall or I can start figuring out and devising a new plan. And even after I figured out a new plan, my social medias grew. I created the apparel line. I sold like $30,000 in apparel in 2 months. I was like, you know what? I'm going to be all right. Started digging myself out of a hole. They shut me down again, filed an order to show cause, did all this stuff to shut me down, not allow me to sell on my website, not allow me to sell on social media. They shut me down. I was completely dead in the water again. Had to go to a legal battle, lost all my savings in a legal battle, lost my kids' college fund, all of it, lost everything, maxed out every credit card to pay lawyers to fight a fight that I thought I knew how to fight, because I just trusted lawyers. You know, they're telling me, hey, you got a case here. So I took every dollar I had and spent it. And thank God I found a lawyer that stood up for me and was like, you know what, you're in over your head here. I'm going to help you out. And Tim Parlatore came in, and Parlatore Law Group came in and basically saved our lives. You know what I mean? He at least got the shark from off of my leg that was gnawing away at my life and my existence.
That's crazy. And you know, I love the way that you put how you consider your music, because that speaks volumes to the fight that you had to have to be able to get to where you are, and that continuation of service. You know, your songs are so powerful when you look at Last Call and you look at, Too Far Gone, so many things that you've done in your life, you do for others. What kind of joy does that bring you and your family, nonetheless, when you're able to put into words, put into a song, something for, a fallen office or the military or first responders? What does that mean to you?
Well, at the time that I was writing those songs, I could relate to, a fallen officer who was given his last will and testament, basically his last words back to his wife and his kids and his brothers and sisters in blues, because that's what I felt, man. I felt like I was dying every day. I felt like I didn't have a chance in hell, not only to come out of this thing, in any kind of positive way, but it was down to survival, man. It was literally down to survival in my family. My kids had to watch, my wife and I go through it. It was devastating. And when they say damages, legal damages and pain and suffering, walking into your house and looking at your kitchen table and seeing it stacked with manila folders and proof and evidence and all this stuff for a lawsuit, for years. Yeah. This went on. And for us to try to raise kids and try to stay positive, and here I have two kids, two young boys, they're 12 and 14. Both of them are dual athletes, straight A students, badass little dudes. And they're not so little anymore, but they watched us persevere through that. We didn't hide any of that.
Right. They watched you fight.
They watched us struggle. They watched us on our kitchen floor crying in each other's arms. They witnessed the power of a marriage and what it's going to take for a marriage to survive, for a household to survive. The amount of work that I used to put in. When I was trying to print my own shirts, I had to wait for my buddy's print shop to be open, which was usually Sunday night from about 5:00 until about Monday morning, which was about 8:00. So I would be gone printing. I would bring my kids with me because my wife, she was trying to sleep. I'd take the kids up with me. They would help me through the night in the summer times. You know what I mean? They're folding t-shirts. We grinded as a family together. We are nowhere. We're still nowhere, but we're better than where we were. You know what I mean? The shark is no longer gnawing on our leg. The surface of the water is starting to become closer and closer. Although we still have a little breath in our lungs, we're still fighting to get to get back to even and back to the fresh air point. So, that stay the course, finish the fight and mantra was something that I needed in my life because I knew God had a better plan. I knew that he would not have given me these gifts and this love of music and this willingness to share my heart and my willingness to continue my service through music and to give back to those men and women who have lost their loved ones and those families who had lost their loved ones and to see what their reaction is to it. It's God does not miss. And that was the one thing that I came back from. A lot of it was like, God don't miss, man. He don't miss any of it. He does not miss. The only thing he missed was his son when he gave him up. And after that, he is a part of all things. Therefore, he cannot miss anything.
See, now there's your next song.
There you go. God don't miss.
None
of it.
None of it. I love that. And you've done so many things. I mean, you've sang, I mean, when I look at all the people that you've been on stage with, that's ridiculous. I mean, and then the places that you've sang, what does it mean to you to be that I love that rock and roll patriot? How much pride do you have in having that, in essence, title, but also getting on that stage each night for, when you look at some of the places that you've sang, the Military Bowl, World Police and Fire Games, which I've been to before, and you look at like the PBR World Finals, all of those are like the Americans. What does that feel like to be able to sing to them and just instill that patriot feeling to them?
Well, that's part of the mission is you hope that vibe will enter their hearts and they'll remember, because all of us get so caught up in chasing that we forget to look past what we're chasing at and look down and look back at those who gave us the opportunity to chase, at the flag up ahead that allowed us, to chase, for those who sacrificed their lives for that flag and for the freedom to be able to chase. Yeah. And the ground underneath our feet that we're running on, that was, fought and paid for in blood. I just look at it as if I can sing a song over a microphone and bring just a moment that you look down and watch the hairs on your arm stand up and your heart fill up, maybe with a little bit of pride for this country. Maybe you're not an outspoken, one of these, pundits on social media. Maybe you're not out, waving a flag about whichever D or an R you're on, but maybe there's just a part of you inside of you that may have forgotten how great America is. If I can sing a song that makes you remember that just for that opening ceremony, or, through part of that concert night in that venue, that you raise up a glass and you take a moment to remember that is the mission. That's why we call it Music on a Mission. And that's the idea, is just to reinvigorate and have people remember what it's like to be a citizen and understand the duty they have as a citizen of the greatest nation on the planet Earth.
Wow. That was probably the best way that I could ever end a podcast. You need to go to DaveBrayUSA.com. That's right. And you can learn all about how to have him come to your opening ceremonies, have him play an acoustic show, whatever it is. It is going to be a valuable time if you make sure you reach out to him. Dave, I always end the same way with 3 questions. Are you ready?
Sure, man.
All right. If you could go back to your 18-year-old self and give yourself one piece of advice, what would that be?
18-year-old self, I would just say, stay away from alcohol.
There you go. I've not had that one. I've had every 4 years.
Every bad decision I've ever made had alcohol attached to it.
Yeah, there's so many songs about it too, though.
Yeah. Next question.
Here we go. If you could give everybody's going through challenges and struggles. If you could give them 2 habits to incorporate into their daily life, what would those 2 habits be?
Exercise and prayer.
Love it. This last one's going to be good. If you could have coffee at a firehouse table with 3 individuals, they could be deceased or alive, and at a firehouse table, no questions are off the table, who would those 3 people be?
Jesus is number 1.
There you go.
I'd like to talk to George Washington, but I'd also like to talk to Winston Churchill at the same time. I don't know if that's possible, but those are 2 of the same kind of thing in each country. Yep. So, they both have that sort of same thing. And then I'd like to talk to a buddy of mine who passed away when he was 10, and just ask for his forgiveness.
Love it. Dave, thanks so much for joining me today. I appreciate everything you're doing. Keep doing what you're doing. Keep on that mission. And I appreciate it.
Right on, man. Appreciate you guys, Rob. Thank you again for having me. DaveBrayUSA.com. You can get all the support merch there and check out the website. Make sure you subscribe while you're there, and all the social medias.
Thanks for listening and supporting the Forged in the Fires podcast with Fireman Rob. Remember, don't forget to like and subscribe to this podcast, and please share this episode with a friend or family. To find out more about Fireman Rob or reach out about a question, go to www.firemanrob.com. Until next time, live your life forged in the fires.